Brought to you by the Every Dollar app. Start budgeting for free today.
So we've got a second child on the way, due in November. Wife wants me to remodel the basement so we have more space, just for play area, a full bathroom that we can get done. She wants me to use the HELOC that I took out before I listened to both George's book and Dave, your book. And I want to cash flow it, whether it takes me a couple more months just to do it or not. I'm just trying to make sure that's on the same path, but I'm thinking I have to pause kind of the debt snowball at the same time.
Are you trying to get me and Dave to tell your pregnant wife something you don't want to tell her?
No.
I'm just playing.
I have told her already that it's okay to do this, but at the same time, I need time because I can do a lot of it myself, but I only want to do it with cash.
Yeah, your impulse is right, man.
Yeah. Here, the problem is that you guys are not aligned. It's not whether to do a basement or not. The problem is she's willing to borrow whatever amount of money to get whatever she wants, and you're not. And so, because you're dealing with a set of information that she doesn't have after going through George's book and consuming some of our material, you have become accurately, I think, convinced that the best way for your family to prosper is to get out of debt and stay out of debt. She's not convinced of that.
Yeah, it took me a while for her just to even listen to your book, Dave. I had to kind of not force her, but I did that through the car on trips or whatever, and she kind of was under the impression like, okay, we need to get on this, but I kind of talked her off the cliff of buying a new home, which would be more than twice what we're paying now for a mortgage payment, which I didn't want to do. And so now we're going to stay, and the contention was that I need to remodel the basement.
Okay, no, it's not. The problem is not the basement. The problem is you and your wife do not agree on how to live life. And you are begging and pleading her to listen to something, to understand something, and she's bowing up and saying she refuses to do so. By God, get me what I want.
Okay.
That's what you've just described. Now, I don't know if that's what's happening, but that's what you described.
Sure.
You're not leaving her in a very good light in this conversation.
And I don't mean it that way.
No, I'm not criticizing you. I'm criticizing her, unless you're wrong. Because, I mean, I got to tell you, I don't have conversations with Sharon, nor does she have conversations with me where she's tiptoeing around like you're tiptoeing around her. Like, oh, I don't know, honey. I listen to this. No, it doesn't happen that way at the Ramseys. It's like, hey, this means a lot to me, and you mean a lot to me, and I really want you to give this a serious listen like an adult. And then I go listen to the podcast that Sharon wants me to listen to. I may disagree with the thing. I may come back and we may have an argument about it, but we're going to do it on an adult level. But I don't do stuff because I'm scared of Sharon or because I had to talk her off the ledge. And I concede my principles by to talk her off the ledge.
And my wife doesn't give me ultimatums in my house. Well, if you're going to do this, I'll listen to the book, but you have to buy me a new house.
We don't do trade outs. Like you're going to go build out the basement if you don't get me a new house. No, that's not. I mean, if we decide instead of moving to a new house that we can't afford, we're going to build out the basement, we're still going to do that based on principles that we both agree to. So, Matt, you do not have a debt problem or a cash flow problem or a decision on how to build out the basement problem. You have a marriage problem.
Yeah, and you have to sit down and have that conversation. And from the sound of your voice, it sounds like that's going to be a tough one. And it may be that y'all have reached an end of the end of the road where y'all can have that together. You're going to have to get a third party, whether it's a counselor or a minister from your church or a trusted friend. But y'all have to get on the same page with how you're doing life. And it's you versus her right now. You're bringing a second kid into the world. That's just a recipe for chaos.
Yeah. You probably do need to sit down with somebody and make it easier. Just to have somebody walk you through this. And it could be family of origin stuff in the sense of, Rachel talks about this. Let me send you a copy of Rachel's book for both of you to read. title escapes me.
Oh, know yourself, know your money.
Know yourself, know your money. But one of the things she goes, thank you. One of the things she goes through is if she grew up in a household where spending was just part of the game, and you grew up in a household where money was fearful, then you're trying to bring fearful into her princess world. And that doesn't work. She grew up as a princess, and now you're telling her no.
Or if she grew up poor and
now you're telling her no.
she wants to spend now.
Yeah, or whatever it is. I don't know what the background is. I'm not saying she's a princess, but I'm saying, when you start demanding things back and forth like that, that's a relational breakdown, man. That's not because what you're saying is we have a baby on the way. My wife wants me to build out the basement. That's not unreasonable. She wants me to build out the basement now and use a HELOC to do it, and I can do it 2 months later without borrowing money. That's unreasonable.
Completely unreasonable.
Completely unreasonable. Oh, and here's what's even more unreasonable. This is a baby that is 6 or 8 pounds.
Maximum 21 inches.
Does not take up much room. Does not need an entire basement. Can exist for quite a while in the upstairs. And not be damaged by anything.
You know what? It won't even know, Dave.
It won't know.
It won't even know.
For years.
It won't even know.
It may never know that there was a downstairs.
Here's a good equation for all you math nerds who are married. If she wins and you lose, you both lose. And if you win and she loses, you both lose. You can't win marriage arguments because somebody loses, and if one of you loses, everybody in the house is lost.
We have to realign and find a way. So one of the things that we learned to do on stuff like this, Matt, was first, we got to agree on the principle. The principle is we're not borrowing money. The principle is we're getting out of debt before we go do upgrades to the basement. That's what really ought to happen. He's on baby step 2. No, I'm not stopping baby step 2. We're going to get out of debt because I want to be free. And borrower slave to the lender. Now, once we're agreed on that principle, then happy to do the basement. And I'll do it as soon as we're out of debt, and as soon as we have the emergency fund in place. The first thing we'll do is the basement. Okay, now we hit that point, and I remember exactly what it was. It was $18,000 that I needed/wanted to do here at Ramsey in the business. I had $18,000 in my pocket, and I had a thing I wanted to do here, and I knew I could turn that 18 into 100, investing into the business. She was driving a 1902 Astro van that had enough goldfish crumbs in it from raising 3 toddlers, and it had 285,000 million miles on it, and she wanted an upgrade car. Both things are right. You know what we did? Both of them. But we just had to choose the order. And I was happy to get her the car first and then come back and do the investment at the office. It wasn't a no. It was a what order once we aligned on the principles.
Perfect.
None of that's happening in this conversation.
None.
Create your free every dollar budget today, the simplest way to budget for your life.